Hi guys, Jojo Benchmarker here. Today's video isn't about a benchmarking video, but rather a video that maybe can answer the question, if any, about why I pick 30 frame per second limit in few games. In this case, when I played and recording Yakuza 3 Remastered benchmark with 30 frame per second limit instead of 60 frame per second limit or maybe auto. So in case of your question of why I choose to pick the 30 FPS limit rather than the 60 FPS limit, is simple, and you can actually see it in the footage I saw on the screen right now, where as you can see, the 30 FPS limit is run normally while the 60 FPS limit gets some slow motion like effect. So, for you who may be confused, it happens that the developer of the Yakuza 3 Remastered seems to implement the common technique where if you set the 60 FPS as the limit, it's actually telling you that the game will forcefully make it render all the frames in order to achieve the 60 FPS. With the downside, the FPS is actually tied to the speed of the game. Meaning, if your device can only produce frame rate below the 60 FPS, which let's just say 30 FPS, because 30 FPS is half of 60 FPS, the game will then run with half speed in order to achieve the condition it must fulfill the limit of the frame rate, which is 60 FPS. So, maybe some of you asking the question of why not choosing the auto frame rate limit instead? Well, it's simple. The auto frame rate limit in this game, as far as I know, work as a boolean, or if you don't familiar with the word I just say, it actually work as a decision maker where there is two conditions, in which if the frame rate I achieve below the 30 FPS, it will turn on the 30 FPS limit and turn off the 60 FPS limit. If the frame rate I achieve above the 30 FPS limit, not including the 30 FPS, it will turn off the 30 FPS limit and turn on the 60 FPS limit. Sounds simple, right? Well, actually there is one problem. Let's say my laptop only achieves 45 FPS in this game. In this case, the game will turn off the 30 FPS limit and pick the 60 FPS limit as the default for me. It's not a low frame per second number for gaming if I do say so myself. 45 per second or 45 frame per second is kinda acceptable even in some intense multiplayer modern game, just like Call of Duty or Battlefield. So of course it will run smoothly, right? Right? Well, it's not. Before you comment something mean to me in the comment section, I record both footage with low graphics settings in-game in order for my laptop to be able to produce 60 frame per second performance and then limit it to 45 frames per second using the software called Rivatuner Statistic Server, which is included when installing the MSI Afterburner software. As you can see, even if 45 frames per second is an acceptable number for frame per second in many games, because of the condition that the developer applied, as I said before, the 45 frames per second tied as 3/4 speed of the game because it's not fulfilled the condition of the game setting that said that it must achieving the limit of 60 frames per second limit. If you're still confused, just think it like this. Let's say you have a friend asking you for help to build a simple wall for his house. He has the ingredients of 60 bricks, and you wearing a watch with a timer function. You remember that you have something important that needs your attention in 1 hour, and then you set your timer for 40 minutes. You guys build the wall together. In the placement of the 45 bricks, the timer then starts ringing. So you say to your friends that your assistant is done because you have to go to do some important things after this. In this state, there will be two things that can happen. One, your friend agree with you and letting you leave after hearing the timer ringing, and he accept that the condition that you must leave. The second, your friend rejects your word, saying he still has 15 bricks left that needs to be placed and asking you to extend your time for helping him. The frame per second limit in this game is picking the second option, where they need to finish the whole 60 frames per second, making the game animation look smooth, but sacrificing the supposed in-game speed, which is actually a good practice to apply in JRPG, especially turn-based combat games where ultimate attack sometimes has pleasing aesthetic. But it's kinda bad when applied to speed action game, especially like Yakuza, where sometimes speed and timing is the one that's important here. Alright, I guess that's all for the reason of why I picked 30 frames per second limit as my option in Yakuza 3 Remastered benchmark and maybe some other games that I played. I apologize if I say some word that maybe offend you in some way or another. Until then, stay healthy and stay happy. See you next time. As you can see, even if 45